So I'd love to introduce Miss Angela Hall. Angela, thank you so much for being willing to come into this space today and to help other families feel less alone. Angela works for a firm that supports mostly women-owned businesses doing bookkeeping and payroll. She works from home and has two amazing adult children, Emma and Declan, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful souls, with two dogs, four cats, and she fosters dogs for a local rescue. So I'm not surprised that she's spending her free time helping our furry friends in need. She loves documentaries, cooking, and audiobooks. And she is an advocator beyond all advocators, which is why I have asked Angela to join us today. So, welcome and good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And so, we're going to jump in. So, from the moment you knew, and Angela has a beautiful and unique story. And so, Angela, in the very beginning, what was the moment that you first realized that something might be different about your children?
Well, when they're twins, and so when they were born, Emma has an additional diagnosis of Down syndrome, which we did not know until she was born. And so I guess to some extent, I always knew this was going to be an adventure from the beginning. And it's she didn't get an autism diagnosis for several years. It trial by fire. I would explain my experience as trial by fire. So we were starting with the Down syndrome diagnosis and dealing with that, and then at some point, two and a half, I think I was maybe in a little bit of denial, and comparatively, Declan seemed typical in comparison, right? So you can kind of go, no, no, everything's fine, everything's fine, it's all fine. And at some point, the mirror was kind of held up in front of my face and went, hey, this isn't, you can't explain this stuff away anymore. Like, there are things that should be happening that aren't, and we need to figure that out. So the verbal language was obviously not really there. There was a lot of the tiptoeing and things like that are pretty stereotypical behaviors. But he got diagnosed at, he was about two and a half. He was about two and a half.
So, when you were in that space of wondering before you had answers, what were the biggest emotional challenges you faced while waiting for an evaluation or diagnosis? And if you can also share with us about the diagnosis for both of your kids, what did that look like?
So I think the big emotional obstacle for me was feeling like, I mean, it was fear. I was afraid. I was really afraid of what that would look like. Can we count how many times you've made me cry over the last couple
Oh
of years?
no, I don't know.
Um,
You're my rock. You're my rock. I feel like when I've let me stop for a minute. Let me share with everybody our experience together. So, Angela, this might be the first time I've actually seen you cry because you are a solid rock, and it's so healthy for you because you're still going 1,000 miles an hour to take care of your kids, and it's
sure.
revisiting this is hard. And so it's thank you for being vulnerable today. And I'm about to cry here with you. So Angela and I had met through caring for her kids. I had the absolute privilege of taking care of these two beautiful souls. And when I think of their names, that's what I think of. They are so magnificent, her kids. And as we had our visits, I kind of looked at Angela and I was like, hey, I'm kind of running this autism resource clinic and I need a parent advocate. And you are such an amazing advocate. Would you be willing to come and speak at one of my resource clinics? And I think from the very first resource clinic that Angela came to, I think you were the last speaker at my resource clinic. I think you
Mhm.
came almost every time. And so the resource clinic is where I brought 25 families together. And I think Miss Blair is also on, and Miss Blair and Gavin also had the opportunity to speak at the clinic and will be speaking at our next Autism Playbook seminar on March 6th. So thank you for joining us today, Miss Blair, as well. Miss Hall and I have been working together for, I want to say, 3 years. Was it that long that you were
Easily,
speaking at the
yeah.
clinic? So I ran the clinic for about 7 years, and almost half of it Miss Hall came every month diligently, and she'd come with all of her devices and things and tools that she wanted to share with parents about how she has overcome some of the struggles and helped Declan and Emma to just assimilate. And so I knew fabulous fit for the playbook seminar. And as we're launching Amazing Kids and trying to figure out how can we integrate into the world and really help parents and help them to believe that there is so much possibility for these kids. And we're going to get to all the amazing things that Declan and Emma are doing now. But this emotional part, this beginning part, it's raw and it's real and it doesn't ever just completely go away, but you definitely
No.
get to the point of acceptance and you're rolling with it, but it's still heavy on your
Hmm.
heart.
Sure.
And so can you talk about, and if things are too hard to talk about, say, hey, Dr. Hensley, knock it off. But can you talk about that process of going through the or waiting for the evaluation or what it felt
Mhm.
like to you? And I know we did talk about it in the past, but would you mind kind of coming back? So I'm gonna, instead of
Sure.
giving you two questions at once, I'm just gonna say, like, what was when you were in that space of wondering and before you had all the answers, what was the challenge that you faced during that time while waiting for the evaluation?
Right. Well, and because I have the unique situation of having two kids and having them both have diagnoses, I guess when I was born and we had the Down syndrome diagnosis, I had taken some sort of comfort in this idea that she's got this twin brother that's always going to be around to take care of her. And coming to the realization that maybe she won't, maybe somebody's going to have to take care of him too, is a scary, scary space because I'm sure every single one of us has gone, gosh, what's going to happen when I'm gone? What's going to happen when I'm gone? I don't know. I still don't know. And it's something that, it changes as their needs change. And as time has gone on, you kind of you get some of those answers, but, you say, what do you wait? What do you do when you wait while you wait to get all the answers? I still don't have all the answers. They're 20 and I still don't have all the answers. They could be 40 and I'm still not going to have all the answers. But I think the uncertainty is something all of us feel in the beginning, like, what is this going to mean? What is this going to mean for their life? What is it going to mean for my life, my family's life? And it's a mourning period to some extent. Like, it's not a death, but in some way it is, because you have all these ideas about what their life is going to look like and what your life is going to look like, and all of the family activities and the pictures and the adventures, and those are going to look really, really different. And I can say this side of the diagnosis, they do look different. They don't necessarily look worse. Like, we still have a lot of fun and we still do a lot of great things. And there are blessings in that diagnosis too. There are a lot of things that I get to experience with my kids that other parents don't get to experience. When I have peers who are like, well, oh, my kids don't want to be around anymore and they don't like me and they're off doing their own thing. And I don't, they never give me a hug anymore. My kids hug me all the time. Like, you guys stink. My kids love me.
And Angela is the light of both Declan and Emma's eyes, and she will be for her entire life. Like those two children, adult children, give the best bear hugs and smiles and love towards their mama. And so that is such a blessing.
It is. We have so much fun. We do. I consider it a privilege to spend time with them. We have a lot of struggles, but it's a blessing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, if you could go back to those early years, are there signs that you now wish you had kind of trusted sooner than what you did?
I think I wish, not necessarily that I would have trusted them, because I think in my heart I knew. I wish I would have leaned into it a little more and gone, okay, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And not tried to, oh, it's fine. No, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And skipped that denial phase. I wish I had leaned into it a little quicker.
So, who was the first person that brought up autism to you? How did that word come into the play when you were starting to feel like something was a little different?
I feel like it was a doctor. I don't totally remember. It's a blur. I feel like it was a doctor that said, we need to evaluate for this stuff. There's some milestones here that we're missing. And seeing the verbal delay and the tiptoes and some of the, looking out of the side of his eyes and that kind of stuff, that they went, hey, this is more likely than not.
So let's talk specifically about Declan since he got diagnosed first. So you had that first thought, or somebody shared with you, maybe your healthcare provider, like, hey, this could be a concern. What were the next steps after that? How long did it take you to get that evaluation, and what did that look like?
I feel like it was pretty quick in retrospect. We have the gift of some excellent healthcare along the way. And I feel like it was really fast. And we were in the DC area at the time. So, obviously, if we had been in the middle of Nebraska or something, it might have been a different story. We did have a lot of resources, so I feel like that was pretty quickly. Yeah, I feel like it was pretty quickly. But once they said it, once they do the evaluation and go, yeah, this is what's going on. I remember leaving the office and I had both of them, with me and put them in the car and just kind of like sitting in the parking lot for a minute. Like, I feel like they hand you a diagnosis and you don't get a whole lot. It was felt very clinical at the time. I was like, okay, so now what do I do? I'm sort of like, see you in 6 months. And I was like, now what? Now what do I do? And feeling that way, sort of like, don't leave this parking lot. It's not really real.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that with me before. And how old was Declan at the time?
About 2.5.
2.5. And so this is the problem nationwide, right? I'm glad you got in to see somebody quickly and got the diagnosis, but now you have a new rush of emotion of, okay, if this is what it is, like, what do we do next? And
What do we do
unfortunately, our
now?
healthcare providers are just so strapped with time. That's the excuse that we'll give everybody, including myself when I was in that situation. And we just don't even have the time to like give you to really help you build that team, which is just as critical as the diagnosis. Because if you get the diagnosis and you can't act on it as a parent because you're paralyzed, how are we going to get our kids moving forward, right? And so you sat there in the parking lot with that diagnosis with your two beautiful babies, the same babies you walked into the appointment as the ones you were leaving with.
Mhm.
What did you do next? Because you have an amazing will about you. So, what happened during that next phase for you?
I think I almost immediately went to the bookstore. Like that was my next stop was load up. Let's figure this out. I'm a problem solver by nature.
Hmm.
And so I was sort of like, okay, so what's this going to be? What are we going to do? What's next? And it's almost impossible to even prepare, even with a thousand books, like really to go, okay, well, now you need to contact the school district and there's programs and there's things and there's all this stuff. And even today, I don't know if there's so many resources out there. It's nearly impossible to know all about all of them without like reaching out and talking to people. You have to talk to people, whoever it is, and you can't just rely on a book or the internet or whatever. Like you really need to tap into your network of people. Somebody's going to know something you don't. But yeah, my first stop was absolutely the bookstore. And like, can I read everything on earth and fix it?
I love it. Empowering yourself with all that knowledge and education. Wonderful. Not surprised. Not surprised at all. So, tell us a little bit about Emma's diagnosis.
Emma's diagnosis came decently later. I think she was like 7 or 8, maybe. And I guess I don't think anybody was necessarily ignoring anything. It's just like she has this other comorbidity. And so you sort of like kind of attribute it to that for a while. And then at some point you go, okay, yeah, they're very different in many ways. Their autism doesn't show up quite the same way. And so if it had been identical situation, you'd have gone, oh, like a long time ago. Oh yeah, of course. But it wasn't really like that. Hers, ironically, was easier to take. She already had a diagnosis. We had already been kind of dealing with Declan's diagnosis for a while. The physician that diagnosed her was a different physician, and he was lovely. He didn't have all the answers either, but he was much kinder. He was much kinder with the news. I think I don't think anyone was trying to be abrupt about it. It was just it's hard. It's hard news to take, and it's probably really hard news to deliver as well. So I can't shoot the messenger. He was just doing his job. But the second diagnosis was ironically a lot easier to take because at some point you realize that the label is scary, but the label has power. The label has resources. If you have the label, you have your permit to do whatever, right? If you don't have that diagnosis, you can't get help.
I love that. I love that. And that's the scary part is the label. I mean, I've definitely had a lot of families say, I just don't want my child labeled. It's just the way our healthcare system works. You have to have a
But you do. You
diagnosis.
you want the label. You want the label because the label is the key to services.
Absolutely. So after Emma's diagnosis, then what happened after that diagnosis following? What was your
It's
course of action there?
I was sort of like, okay, well, I kind of know what's going on now. Okay.
Yeah,
At some point, you just sort of steer into the skid. It's like, okay,
we're
this,
ready.
this is our life. Here's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Who did you find as your support network? during those early months and weeks?
Gosh, I have found there are a lot of people that, you have friends, you have family that want to be supportive and make a great effort to be supportive, but they can only they don't know. And the greatest support are the people that actually are in the trenches. They're other parents, healthcare providers, school therapists, whatever, because they actually know what this looks like. You have
Absolutely.
friends that want to be lovely and what can I do? And they want to be helpful, but they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so once you had the clarity and once you realized, okay, we're ready, we got the diagnosis, we're ready to figure out how to build that team. What did you do next to get those therapies, schools, support systems? Like how did that building that team work for you?
We moved a lot because of the military, and so that's actually kind of a blessing, I guess. It feels like, oh well, it would need to be better if you could just park in one spot, but I've had a lot of experiences, good and bad, that kind of help shape my understanding of what things are supposed to look like. I can go, oh, that's not actually how that's supposed to go. I know what the law in this country actually is, and let's talk about it. I know you see the best and the worst, and you tend to help people rise to the occasion.
Yes. Yes, you
um,
do that. You're such a good partner. Like, how did you get people on the team to be the best teammate that they could for your kids?
not being afraid to be loud,
Mm,
really, not being afraid to ask a lot of questions, to make a lot of phone calls, ask again. If you're not getting the answer you want, ask somebody else. And not assuming that just because I'm just the mom that I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't have an idea of what's best. Not always trusting somebody with a title to know what's best in any given situation.
I love that. I love that. How did you filter out the noise during that time? Because there's a lot of noise, right?
There is a lot of noise. I decided at some point to just decide what goals were really, really important to me, to my house, for my kids. That is communication, however that comes in. If you want to draw the answer or use your AAC or dance it out, I don't care. Whatever you need to communicate, that was really important to me. Communicating in some way, shape, or form, and helping them to whatever level of independence they are capable of. And that really helps you if you have very specific goals. It really helps you decide what choices to make along the way, because you can really get bogged down in the details and try to do everything. There's a million resources. You don't need to use a million of them. You just need to use the ones that are really, really appropriate for you. So, choosing the things that were really serving those couple of overarching goals, and kind of letting them be kids the rest of the time, and having some level of, I say, normalcy, whatever that means, but saying not every minute has to be therapy, not every minute has to be dictated by autism. We can just do some regular stuff sometimes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because, I'm a huge fan of community, right? So we get this overwhelming diagnosis. We got to build this medical and therapy team yesterday. We feel like we got to get
Yeah.
them the right school placement yesterday. All that stuff is great. Like, yeah, we all go through tons of training in the medical field to be able to take care of your amazing kids. But at the end of the day, they're kids. And what are
Hmm.
kids' vocation? To play and to have fun and to learn to
Yep.
be social and to learn to make a friend and figure out what their passions are. So I love that you have always been like that as well. So, like, talk to me a little bit more about how important the community was for you and the outside interests and just being a kid.
We spend a lot of time, therapy, classrooms, whatever, teaching our kids to fit into the world. And I think it's also our job to teach the world to fit our kids.
Yeah, I love that.
It's okay for my kid to take up space, and it's okay for him to stim and flap his arms and whatever. He deserves to exist in the world just like everybody else does. And when I was a kid, I don't remember, they'd shuffle the special ed kids away, right? You never in a room somewhere in the school, and maybe they were there and maybe they weren't. Like it's okay. There's nothing embarrassing here. I'm not embarrassed. He's sure not embarrassed. It has to be normalized to some extent. We all deserve a little bit of grace going through the world, and the world doesn't get better if I hide my kids away somewhere. It's okay for them to just be out and disrupt a little bit. We'll all get over it. It'll be fine.
I love it. We had somebody on a couple weeks ago who's a assistant teacher in Tennessee, and she learned so much from our seminar. And she said that it's still that same way where they are, and it's definitely a much smaller town than the bigger cities. But she said, they're just all in the same class. Doesn't matter what grade they're in, doesn't matter what their ability is. They're all just kind of shuffled away, and that makes sense to me as to why kids with higher IQs might be biting other kids because they're frustrated and they can't
Yeah.
communicate well. And so there's still a lot of that going on. So thank you for saying that. That's so important. And absolutely, they have a space. They should have a big space in this world. What are some things that you did to integrate them into the community outside? And I know do you want to talk about what they're doing recently, the videos that you shared with me?
Oh, they are in such a wonderful program right now. And the school that they're in is just miraculous when it comes to integrating the groups of kids. They have 2 concerts a year where they have a whole program that I can't even imagine how much work they put into these programs. And they're singing and dancing, and it's a fine arts school, so they have an actual like dance program, and they bring those dance students in to teach the kids the dances, to dance with them, and they fill up the first row at that and cheer and dance in the aisles, and they make such a wonderful show of supporting each other. And it's not just, oh, you're required to be in here. They are genuinely excited for these kids. They have a social club that's a mix of the special ed kids and the mainstream kids. No one's required to be there. They show up voluntarily. They go out for pizza. They go to movies. And it's just people that are like genuinely happy to be together.
I love it. Do you feel
Amazing.
like, yeah, go ahead, Simone, I'm sorry.
No, I just was saying that's just amazing. I'm really enjoying listening to both of you. Just go back and forth and just how you're so in sync and simpatico with the way you think.
Yeah. Do you feel, Angela, that it was easy to get your kids involved in the community when they were younger? Like you feel like it's always been easy?
No, it has not always been easy. And I, to some extent, put that on myself because it was like, oh, we're going to go out and, oh, well, you need to keep your voice down and you need to be quiet. And, oh, like managing behaviors. And yes, it's important to manage some behaviors, but as long as no one is talking above a normal volume of pitch, I don't care if he wants to recite the entire Shrek trilogy. It's fine. He's welcome to do that.
Which he can do, let's add.
He absolutely can do. But yeah, I put a lot of it on me. It's hard to take 2 kids out. It's hard to take 2 kids with special needs out. It's hard to take 2 elopers out. Oh my God. I feel like as they've gotten some skills, it's gotten easier. But I guess the flip side of that is when they were small, I definitely felt like the world is more sympathetic to a 5-year-old who's maybe acting not quite 5, as opposed to a 15 or 16-year-old that's acting 5. Like they get less cute as they get older, right? Like
Right.
they'll wave it off as a little kid, but as they get older, the sympathy starts to disappear, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, so you mentioned eloping. We actually haven't even touched on that in the seminar series. I'm sure that's just terrifying for you. How did you manage? Or do you still have to manage the eloping? I mean, do you still?
I think once you have one elope, you're always managing it. It's sort of like
Right.
I have a nephew that kind of started to choke on a grape once, and the kid's like 30 and his dad still cuts grapes. It's like once it happens to you once, you never really get over it. I think it hasn't been an issue for us for a while, but I still have the safeguards in place because I have a security system in my house. So anytime a door or window opens, I get a text message, I get a ding. I have a panel in my bedroom that will yell at me if a door opens in the middle of the night, which, is amazing because if you have an eloper, you sleep with one eye open. I feel like I slept with one eye open for many, many years, worrying about somebody getting out in the middle of the night and having me sleep through it. So that has helped a lot. Having a tall fence in the backyard with a lock on it, I worry about it much less. When we're in the community, Declan has gotten much better about staying with me. He will walk ahead of me sometimes because we're in the store and there's something else he wants to look at. But if I say, hey, come back, come back, come back, he does pretty well. Emma, let's talk diagnoses, has an additional diagnosis of ADHD. So if she sees something sparkly and she's gone, it's less of a problem than it was when they were very little, but it's, you have to be really diligent about it. And I've gotten lucky that they have sort of learned that you've got to stay and they will listen to my verbal instructions. And I have some great people who are very supportive and will go with me if I need an extra set of hands or to keep extra set of eyes.
Awesome. Awesome. So when I was working with you previously, I was obviously doing a different practice. And now that I've started my own business, I've decided that the most important thing is number one, getting the diagnosis, right? And that's why we
Right.
just streamlined within 72 hours. We want kids in the door, full developmental testing, full evaluation, and diagnosis with a comprehensive treatment plan. And then the second big part, which you've already talked about, is hey, what do I do next? Right? I'm
Yep.
not going to send my patients, now that I'm working for myself, I'm not going to send my patients out the door because it's not the right thing to do without giving them the tools and getting them set up for success with this diagnosis. And it will forever be changing, right? So the team is always going to be changing and the team has to adjust. So can you like talk about a time where maybe you had somebody on first base for one of your kiddos, and then you kind of looked at them and said, that's not a good teammate anymore. They need to
Mhm.
go on the bench for whatever reason. Can you talk about that experience?
Um, I can't think of a specific example. I know, we've switched therapy providers, companies, ABA companies, and specific RBTs sometimes just go like, that's not a really good fit, whatever. I can't think of a specific time, but I can tell you that when those changes have come, when I've either decided to switch or had to switch a teammate wherever they are in the thing, it's scary because it's easy to just go, I have services and I'm just going to stay on this path. I'm just going to stay on this path. And I have somebody on first. And if I take that person off of first, is somebody else going to cover first? I don't know. It's really, really scary. And I can tell you that every time without fail, when I have had to do that, it has turned out better. It has been to my benefit. It's a scary minute, but it is has always been the best choice.
Was there ever a time that you looked at your kids and you were like, okay, I might think that's a good person on second base, but I sort of feel like Emma or Declan aren't agreeing with me? Where you feel like, and I know most your kids can struggle with verbal communication,
Yeah.
but you read your kids very, very well. Was there
Mhm.
a time you feel like they kind of stepped up and helped adjust the team a little bit? And maybe it wasn't even like taking them off the field, but maybe cutting down the hours or, just redirecting and putting another partner in that position.
Yeah, Emma specifically. Emma is really good about letting me know when she doesn't like something. She never has a problem with that. So yeah, she's certainly had a couple of RBTs that seem to be doing a good job and maybe a perfectly lovely RBT. I'm not saying they're not, talented at their job, but maybe that's not like a personality fit and
Mhm.
going, okay, maybe no hours or fewer hours is better than struggling with somebody who's just not a good fit because
Yeah.
not everybody's going to be a great fit.
And again, that's a hard decision to make as a parent because now we
It
have
is.
maybe 6 extra hours of going, okay, what are we going to do here? Who are we going to put in that space for
Yeah,
her? So I'm proud of you because it's hard to make those big
it is.
decisions.
Something that I didn't, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Go ahead.
something that
Yep.
I didn't really realize was available to me until just a few years ago, as far as an ABA, from an ABA standpoint goes, they have parent training models they can switch to at any given point in time. If you don't have, if you don't want to do direct services or the person doing the direct services isn't working out, you can say, hey, this isn't working out, but I don't want to let you go. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you what my struggles are, and you're going to help me build a plan to handle that on my own in my own house. Simone strategies. So I'm not running session necessarily, but if I go, hey, I need I want to teach Declan to do these 4 chores around the house. How do I do that? And they can help you come up with strategies and plans and tools to help you accomplish that on your own, which is, it's not direct services, but it's a nice middle ground. And I didn't realize I could do that.
And how long did it take you to get to that point where you were like, I know what they need. I know you're a professional, but I know what they need. We need to have a different kind of plan of action.
In this specific instance, it was maybe 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, it takes time, right?
It takes time. It takes time. Yeah. And I would say before that, I would have just gone, hey, this doesn't feel right, and kind of let them decide what that means.
Mhm.
But like I said, you're the best advocate. So you go like, hey, can we do this? And they can usually figure out a way to do that. It's kind of miraculous.
So when like
It
you're
kind of goes
looking,
back to, oops, sorry.
go
I was
ahead,
just going to
Simone.
say, it just kind of goes back to what Angela was saying. And it keeps reverberating in my head that, you ask, and you ask again. So like you have to keep doing that over and over again. And in many ways, Angela, that's what you're doing
Mhm.
constantly. And so that seems like a big takeaway to me.
Yeah.
Persistence, perseverance. So Angela, when you're looking for healthcare providers to take care of your kids, what are some qualities that you're looking for?
Communicativeness, I guess. I want someone who is going to be honest and direct, and also kind, please. I also look for somebody, how they interact with Declan and Emma, really quite a bit. Are you going to talk to them? Are you going to include them in the conversation, even though they may not answer you? Or are you going to act like they're furniture? Because that tells me a lot about how much you know about this specific diagnosis and how you feel about them, really, in the grand scheme of things. Do you see them as people? Because they are. And just because they can't verbalize doesn't mean they don't have thoughts and opinions, and it doesn't mean they don't understand what you're saying. I don't want to be talked about while I'm standing there, and they don't like it either.
That is great advice for all of us. And everybody gets strapped with time and we just focus on the parent and we need to stop and we need to look at our patients, right? So I think that's a very important takeaway, especially for the healthcare providers that are on the call today. If you had one thing that you could share with parents of a new diagnosis about maybe a misconception about autism, what would you like to share?
That it's not, I think that, and this is a misconception I had too, that it's not going to be okay. Like it's going to be awful and horrible and weird and terrible. And it's so much better than I thought it was going to be. Even on its worst day, it's so much better than I thought it was going to be, really. Like I said, we have a lot of fun, and there's been so many points along the road where I thought they're never going to get this. They're never going to do this. This is never like, this isn't going to be okay. And they figure it out, and they get new skills. And every day we will do something. Just a couple weeks ago, we went to Costco. Two kids and I went to Costco, and they're pushing the cart through Costco together. And I looked at them and I thought I would never be able to do this by myself. I thought I would never be able to take the two of them. The idea of taking the two of them to Costco on a Saturday would be my worst nightmare. And here we are. And this was a perfectly lovely experience. And it's a little everyday thing, but it's huge when when you're just sitting on the floor crying in the middle of the night, when you've got a 4 or 5 year old at home and you're thinking, this is never going to be okay. We're never going to be able to do anything normal.
I'm so proud of you and so proud of them. You guys are quite the team, the three of you. Can you talk a little bit about your experience working with me and your children?
It's just been so lovely. I have, like I said, we moved around a lot, and I've had a lot of experience with a lot of different providers, and I can unequivocally say I have not had another provider that has genuinely felt as much care for my kids, really, like genuine empathy and concern for my children on a human level, than you have.
Thank you. Now I'm getting the tears. They're beautiful. You have two beautiful, amazing children. And this has been so wonderful. I think we could keep talking all day, but we are coming to our 45-minute limit. I do want to open the floor if we do have some questions. But Angela, you are a shining light, and I'm so happy that we're continuing to work together to take care of one family at a time. And so I can continue to see your children grow and develop. I'm just so proud of you and so proud of them. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela. This has just been wonderful. We're going to open the live Q&A now. You're welcome to turn on your cameras and ask Angela and or Dr. Hensley a question directly. One of the questions I was going to ask you, Angela, was what you would say to a parent, waiting for answers and second guessing themselves. And I feel like you just completely summed that up at the very, like with your last statement. So it's not even, necessary at this point that you just, said you've come full circle and, it's just amazing. I mean, I think most parents dread going to Costco with their kids anyway, and
Right.
and you do too, and you managed it. So it's just astounding. It's fabulous.
So while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, Angela, do you mind sharing? I think it was Emma, right, that was playing the piano?
Yes. And she's playing the piano again at the next recital.
Yay!
She's
Excellent.
she's really had a lot of fun with it, and I think Clint's going to take that as his elective next semester. So
Nice. And he was singing. What song did he sing?
he's constantly singing. What did he sing last time? He sings at every single one of them. What did he sing? I think they did all Disney last time. Their whole last program was Disney, so he sang The Lion King.
Oh, very nice. Did you send me something of him singing Let It Go as well? Was that one of his
Oh,
songs?
Emma was dancing to it.
Oh, Emma was dancing. Was he singing while she was dancing? There was something.
No. Oh, that was the Grinch. That was the Christmas
Oh,
program. He
that's what
was
it
singing the
was.
Grinch, and she was Cindy Lou Who dancing around him.
And Emma is all girl. She loves tutus and jewelry, and everything has to match all the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And she would come into the office all decked out and just be so happy to get those compliments, which of course I was throwing her way because she was just adorable. And what two amazing kids. You've really done a fabulous job. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm very proud of them.
Any questions from the audience? Angela, while we're seeing if there's any other questions, is there anything else you feel like we didn't talk about today that you just want to share?
Gosh, we covered so much. I'm trying to think if there's anything. My canned speech from the resource clinic. If there's anything I don't have my bag of things today to go. Oh, this is my.
This is it. But you could talk about those. I think you're the most innovative parent of how do you, the right fidget objects that aren't going to get thrown away at $5 a pop, and the AirPods or the.
Oh, the loop earplugs. I love those. They have several different varieties. I think we use the Engage is the model that we use. Declan has a sound aversion sometimes, and they have the noise canceling like earmuffs type situation, and he doesn't have a feeling about it, but I find that some of those more obvious tools like that are sometimes a little isolating when you come into the community. It sort of ends up kind of setting them apart very visually in a very obvious way, and having something like the loop earplugs that can help filter some of that sound and help him function in that space without othering him, to the average passerby is a big deal.
Yeah, I've definitely shared that with a lot of families. I think that is an amazing little tidbit. And they weren't even that expensive, right?
No, $35-$40, something like that.
Excellent. Excellent. I see Junko is on. Junko, would you mind turning on? I can give you a little bit of a shout out, turning on your microphone or your video. So, Junko, good morning. Good afternoon, I think.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the
Junko,
shout out. Sorry,
yeah,
let
would,
me just
would you
go up
like to
that.
share? So, Junko and I have met recently, and she has an app that she has just created. Would you like to talk a little bit more about what you're doing, Junko?
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. So I am developing BrightPath, which is an AI-powered platform for parents and caregivers of autistic children to navigate their treatment journey, really. So, really focused on, younger children and also individuals with the diagnosis, because sometimes they get diagnosed a little bit later in their lives. But as Angela, thanks for sharing your experience, first of all. But yeah, I have two children with autism as well. So I went through that journey myself. And the first, the early part of the journey is very, very stressful and confusing, and just it's very difficult to navigate emotionally and logistically. So the idea is to create support the parents to go through that journey and navigate their care systems and resources, you know, like tailored to them so that you don't have to spend hours on Google or ChatGPT chatting, figuring out what's right for them, what's available. So this AI Bright Path is going to help the resources tailored to each individual situations and the special needs of their child. So that's the idea, and it's a beta stage, and then we're recruiting the testers, beta testers. But yes, its app is available now. So if anyone's interested in trying it out, I'll be happy to send the link over. So thank you.
Thank you, Junko. Yeah, so
So go
go
ahead.
for it.
I was going to tell you there's a question in the chat. You want to finish your sentence and then we'll
Perfect.
go for the
Who's the
question.
question for?
It's for
Oh,
Angela. Angela,
perfect.
you mentioned that you wish you would have pursued diagnosis earlier. What if someone is not ready or has too much shame or really doesn't understand the significance of the services and not having services for their children or child?
That's huge. And I get it. I really understand it because I don't know that I would have taken my own advice at that point in my journey. It's, I guess, just experience has taught me that you think if you don't play, it's not gonna, if you don't participate, it's not gonna happen, right? The game's not gonna happen if you don't play, and the game's gonna happen anyway. And the longer you wait, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. And the sooner you know, the sooner you get help. Really, there's it's unfortunate that there's shame around it, and I get that. A lot of years they used to say, well, it's because the mother is cold, that's why this happens, it's because the mother is cold. So it created this weird sort of, like, I think as mothers we take a lot on ourselves that isn't ours to carry. And it you have to get to the point where you understand this. There isn't shame here. There's nothing to be ashamed of any more than you have to be ashamed about having blonde hair or having blue eyes. It's just, this is how you were born. And the more people that you talk to, I think you will find there are autistic people everywhere. Just because they're not flapping their hands in the front yard doesn't mean they're not out there. I guess I had felt some shame about it too, quite honestly, that gosh, did I just not do something right? I had two kids, I had twins, and they both had something wrong with them. What did I do? This has got to be me. And unfortunately, there are people in the world who will tell you that it's you, that you did something wrong. What did you do? What did you do? Did you take something while you were pregnant? Is this like, and it's not that at all. I understand the shame. I really do. And at some point, I guess you have to develop kind of like, I don't care attitude. Like, I love this child enough for both of us, right? I don't really know how to get past the shame other than just, it's like flexing a muscle. Eventually it gets strong. Nobody's strong the first time they go to the gym. You just got to take that feeling to the gym and work it out.
Angela, did you have to put any family members on the bench? And you don't have to say names, but because that's hard, right? So we'll
No.
just say Great Aunt Sophie. Let's just say that. Great Aunt
Mhm.
Sophie. Did you have a Great Aunt Sophie you had to put on the bench?
Not necessarily. You do have to put people in check sometimes. You really do. You have to, I guess, be an advocate and be an educator and say, hey, this isn't any, this is how this kid is. This isn't anything I did. It's not, no one could have stopped it. It's not a shortcoming on my part or your part or like some flawed genetics in the family. It just is. And we will not be entertaining negative talk about anyone at all, much less while they're standing here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Well,
I was actually wondering earlier when you were asking the question about putting people on the bench, going back to earlier, Angela, when you mentioned that like sometimes family members and friends really want to be helpful. but they don't really know how to help. And so I could see a situation where a lot of them would have wanted to be, on first base or whatever, but you really can't have them there if they don't understand the situation. So it may not even be that they're being negative, but they just don't know how to help. And then you'd
Yeah.
have to either have to learn or they have to kind
Yeah.
of step aside, I would think.
You would probably be surprised at how many of your friends, family members, community members want to help and don't know how and are perfectly open and amenable to hearing how to do that. If you say, hey, this is the situation and this is what's going on and this is what this child's needs are in this situation, or we talk about mental load. Here's the mental load I'm carrying. Here's the 50 things I have to think about before we make this trip beyond the regular mom things that I have to carry. I have to anticipate if it's too loud or if it's too hot or too cold. Is there too many people? Is there an elopement? How many escape routes are there? Like all those things that I'm thinking about that nobody knows, and they don't know if you don't tell them. A lot of people will be happy to stand on first. You just have to tell them where first is sometimes. But it also can be isolating because there's a lot of people who are like, hey, this is kind of too much. This is too much for me to carry. And you just end up like not getting invited to the thing because you're not really participating anyway, because you're chasing kids all the time. When all the grown-ups are all over there talking and watching the kids play, you're not that grown up.
Yeah. We actually, Angela, have a comment from Susan. Angela, thank you for sharing the authenticity and truth of your journey. It inspires us to push forward in our own family challenges. Grateful that Amazing Kids platform can push this goodness out for the world to hear. You are amazing, Angela.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And with that, I think we can close today, Simone.
Sure. At Amazing Kids, we believe people with autism are truly amazing. Our mission is to bring clarity sooner through evidence-based evaluations and thoughtful diagnostic approaches, and to elevate conversations that replace fear with understanding. If today's discussion was meaningful to you, we invite you to explore the Autism Playbook by Dr. Jennifer Hensley, a practical guide to understanding diagnosis, building the right supports, and planning forward with confidence. And to every parent listening, you are not behind, you are not failing your child, and uncertainty does not mean you are alone. Thank you for being part of Amazing Kids.
And as Michelle said in our comments, people with autism are more capable than most believe. Amazingly unique. I love that. So here at Amazing Kids, it's time for us to come to an end with our time together. Angela, you are such a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing. This was, I know, an emotional 45 minutes to an hour for you and for me, and you are just as amazing as your kids. I want to just acknowledge the effort that it takes to be a parent and to sit with this diagnosis, which feels very confusing a lot of times for yourself, for your kids, for the world. But as we empower parents with teamwork, that this is an amazing diagnosis. People with autism are amazing. People with Down syndrome are amazing. Happiest people out there. It's important for us to just stop and reflect on your children in much deeper ways. And today really wasn't about learning everything or having all the answers. It was really about understanding people with autism, understanding that you parents and you people with autism do not have to walk this journey alone. Your child is amazing and still the most amazing person that you walked in that first medical office with. As you're walking out with that diagnosis, you still have an amazing child. And really today, I think, Angela, you really showed the vulnerabilities that this is not all about perfection. It's not all about getting it right the first time. It's not all about, putting all the key players everywhere all the time. It's about making those connections, figuring out what you need to do to support your child, and progressing, having your child progress one day at a time. Sometimes it's even 1 minute at a time. And I loved, Angela, how you said your kids are still acquiring new skills. I think you said that early on. And they're still learning and they're still growing and they're still trying to figure out who they are. And so we need to relish in those successes, and going to Costco with both of them. Like, that's a huge success. I'm so proud of you. And I know there's days that it's going to feel hard and days where you feel less hopeful, and both may exist at the same time. So as we leave today and close out, take what's useful, leave behind what feels heavy and overwhelming, And remember, your child has inherent worth. Your child is not a piece of furniture. Growth is possible, and you are not alone. So I thank you, Angela. And at Amazing Kids, Simone and I want to empower you with teamwork. So parents, put on your coach's hat.
Put on your coach's hat.
And be ready to take care of your team. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.